Okay, so for 3 weeks that dehumidifier has been running continuously here in the basement, and we're at somewhere between 36 and 38% for humidity in the basement here. So I would think if there was any water that was in that wall yet, that dehumidifier should have dried it out. And the fact that I got a fan blowing right at the area, there's got to be plenty of air movement. So I want to get that insulated. Alright, so this is the box that the Kohler sink strainer basket, whatever you want to call it, came in. I got it in the chrome finish. So I took back that $14 one from Menards that was like not even close to the weight of this one. This one's much heavier. Must be all brass and chrome. This basket here is, or strainer, is much heavier as well. It's got an O-ring seal. So again, I would assume that this is brass, probably. I don't know if that's chrome or stainless. This I'm assuming is chrome. This is probably chrome in here. If we flip it over, got a couple different pieces here. Got this flange piece, and there's also some stainless steel. These are stainless steel screws that come with it as well. So that's part of the reason why this is a little bit more expensive. Besides it's made nicer, is it comes with some pretty nice hardware as well. So I just picked up a generic plastic tailpiece from Menards. They're metal ones I don't want to mess with because I know they're going to leak, or they're going to corrode over time. I put one other one in, it didn't take long, and cheap chrome started flaking off, so I'm just going to go with a plastic one. We'll see how that lasts. But there's a rubber gasket here on the bottom that goes with the tailpiece. So on the bottom here it says UPC, but what I really didn't like is the fact that it says China here. So, oops, there. So obviously they must have China making their stuff, because I don't believe that this is a rip-off. It looks like it's pretty official. It had the official Kohler sticker seal here that you had to break to get it open. But yeah, so we're going to get this put in the sink and start getting some stuff put back together here, and I'll show you what I've done with the sink. Alright, so we're going to work on putting the sink basket in here. I'm just showing you what I did with the insulation here. So that's just that foil bubble wrap stuff. So, and it came in the roll, it was 16 inches wide. So I left it that wide and I went 16 long. So it comes up a little bit above and it's a little bit below, and it's all in front of the fiberglass insulation. So that should be pretty good the way I got it there, because the 2x4 is like right in there. So it should be pretty good, and I'm going to use that same sort of stuff in the laundry area. Okay, so I thought about having the sink refinished or reglazed. I didn't want to put an epoxy on it because I heard that that doesn't always last, and I don't know if I can find someone that'll reglaze this sink. I'll probably have that done. Right now I just want to get it back, put away, and done, so we're just going to go with it and live with this. We don't see it every day anyway. So here's our basket. We got a copious amount of plumber's putty on it, and we're going to stick that through the, careful there, through the opening here. You want to make sure, if it matters to you, that the Kohler symbol is somewhat square in your sink opening, because you're not supposed to rotate this once you got it set. So kind of make sure that you got it where you want it, and kind of press this into place here a little bit. Looks pretty good, I think, huh? Yeah, close enough, right? So we'll get that pressed into place, and then we'll go on to the next step. Alright, so we got it flipped around here. So the next step here, they give you a rubber gasket that goes on the bottom here, and then there's this metal flat washer, and then you have this collar or ring that's the thread on. I'm doing this per their directions here, so it's not like I know what I'm doing. I'm just following the directions. Usually I can do a pretty good job following directions. So I'm not an expert when it comes to this, but if there's directions to follow, I can usually do a pretty good job. So, and then it says to hand tighten this. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm not sure how hand tight it's got to be, but oh, that's no good.
Did it pop?
It moved a little bit. I'll have to rotate this back a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't goof us up too much. Oh no, it moves pretty easy. So you might want to keep a hand on this as you thread this in. It's probably plenty tight because these screws then we run into this and that'll pull this whole thing, pull this part down, and we'll squeeze out that plumber's putty. Alright, so we got it all squeezed in there. So one thing to note with this ring, they give you these 3 screws for adjusting the tightness of that basket. So it says to run this ring down hand tight. So if you go more than hand tight, this is going to want to walk like it did on me. So what we did is actually, we just pulled it all out and started over. And it says you should have about a 1/4 inch with these screws when you tighten. And I can tell you these are very tight right now. So according to the instructions, you run it down. There should be a 1/4 inch gap between that metal spacer and then this collar. So, and that pulls everything down and tight, and you don't have to worry about the logo walking, because otherwise, you know, you're screwing this down, which would basically do the same thing as what these screws are doing, but you're trying to hold back on this. So it's just easier to use those screws. Alright, so we're going to put the tailpiece on. We'll probably have to trim it just because the sink sits lower on that countertop. So they give you a rubber gasket. I put a little bit of this plumber's grease on it. I don't know if it needs it or not, but it won't hurt. And then this just basically is this flange fitting here. I'm just going to screw this piece on. And like I said, we might have to trim it, so I'm not going to go extremely tight with it for now. Just get it on there. I'm going to set it in, see if we need to cut it if we have to, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so I got everything mocked up here. Disclaimer, I'm not a licensed or even unlicensed plumber. So that piece back there, that's a 6-inch PVC pipe. And then we got that like flange nut thing that converts it to the cheap P-trap. That's a little bit smaller in size. So I think this should be good. I ended up cutting 2 inches off this tail piece to get the trap up high enough to line up. That shouldn't be an issue. And the supply line there that's going to go to the faucet, that should be easy enough there. Shouldn't be any issue. I was going to go with a flexible line anyway, so if it was in the way we could just go around, but it looks like that'll clear. So could probably pull everything out, glue that 6-inch PVC pipe in, and then put my cover on and then go from there. I don't know if I'm gonna tighten anything down because I still got that faucet coming, and it's easier to put the faucet in the sink with the sink out. So I think that's what I might do. Alright, so that's what it looks like. That hole there just really bothers me, but we'll get that caulked up. I use the clear primer and clear cement for the pipe because I'm a pro. Apparently I'm not a pro. I've been doing it wrong for years. According to the primer, you're supposed to prime both ends of the pipe, and then while it's still wet, add the cement. I don't know that I've ever done that. I always let it dry. So I don't know, I guess I've been doing it wrong, but I haven't had any problems with it. I thought the primer was always kind of to undersize and clean the pipe a little bit, but I don't know. The reason it's pink in the back there is the primer took the writing off the pipe. So yeah, so it's glued in the wall. We got this little stub piece here with the threads. With the threads there, that's glued on as well, and you can tell this panel won't come off with that piece on, but hopefully we never have to access that. If we do, we can put a split in that panel if we have to. But so right now we're at a standstill until get a few more things here. Alright, so I turned my attention on this since I don't have the faucet yet. So what I did was I chipped out the drywall from behind this flooring that comes up, so the new piece can kind of sit behind that. And I'll have to put like maybe a small cleat there, and maybe up in here just to attach it there. Plenty of surface there, and then it's going to sit behind the cabinet there, so that should be okay. Behind here is this foil bubble wrap stuff that's supposed to be decent for insulating. I was going to do rigid foam, but then after the fact, like, there's no way I would have got it in there, so this flexible stuff works pretty good. And I have 2 layers of that behind this pipe here, so it's pretty snug. And they had 4 layers of this tar paper kind of in this area, so I guess in case there was ever a plumbing issue. I thought it was only 2, but then when I started peeling these layers back, it was like, oh, they put quite a few back in here. So yeah, there's actually 4 layers. So that's how I have this insulated here. That should be good. This over here I'm not really sure on, because it looks like, from what I can feel, this pipe actually sits in the middle of the insulation, or they just put the insulation over top the pipe and attached. So there's like a cavity behind, and I don't know if I should insulate behind this or in front of it. I just know now with this being open, it feels like there's a window open, because you get the air coming from the attic just right down in here, and it smells like outside, like fresh air. So I don't know, unless I put a layer behind here and a layer in front maybe, but then I'll have to cut this out by the pipe because there's no give there at all. This is the 3.5 inches of insulation compressed on this side of the pipe, and back here there's nothing, it's just a wall. So it definitely is dry. There's no doubt that that it's dry, and I was actually surprised how well the drywall stayed intact, because I remember when I first started cutting in here, it was extremely soft, and the pipe or the T was rusted off in here. And this drywall actually, it hardened back up again, and whatever type of drywall this was, what they put in back in the 60s, it's got a really thick paper on it. The paper is extremely thick, and like the surface here, I was going to try to score it with a razor blade. You just can't. So actually what I did here was with a screwdriver and just went all along, and unfortunately I cracked it here because I got a little, I should have just been more patient with it. So I'll have to come up, maybe cut it up here. I don't want to come across because I got this stupid tile in here, but that should be okay. We can make that work. This wasn't perfect back here anyway, so. But yeah, so my next thing will be to get that insulated back in there, so we stop some of that draft that we got coming in. And then I'm not sure about if I'm going to leave these on or take them off and put like a metal plate across the front of this, maybe from here down, and try to attach it there to try to help hold that and also protect the pipe. We'll see. Alright, so we're going to wrap up for the day. Amazon's not agreeing with the UPS. UPS says that the faucet is not going to be here till Monday. Amazon says by 8 p.m. today, which obviously is not going to be the case. So what I did here is I got everything cleaned out, and I undersized behind the cabinet here. So I should be able to get a piece of drywall back there. And then I filled behind that pipe. I don't know, I shouldn't have put this piece in. I was going to wait and film, but there's quite a few layers. And then if you remember down in here, I took all that drywall out, so I just kept stacking this stuff because this bubble wrap is really thin. There's not much to it. And I just stacked it up in there as best as I could. So I have some behind the pipe, and then I have some in line with the pipe, and then I have this covering the top, which should hopefully keep the draftiness out now that that's in there, and it's actually tucked in. So whatever this stud bay is, 14.5 or 15.5, whatever it is, it's tucked up in there, and I got it tucked up just a little bit underneath in here as well. Did the same thing over here. I didn't cut any of the pieces. I had my daughter do it, so some of them were not exactly the way they should have been cut, but figure what's the difference? This has got to be way better than what was in here. And then I just screwed some cleats on here for the drywall to rest on. So I don't know, I could put something in here, but honestly you shouldn't need it. I wasn't going to try to do one long piece because that was just going to be too difficult getting that in here with everything. It's easier to do it in smaller sections. So yeah, that's where I'm going to wrap up for today. This stuff though is an amazing product. I think it came right from the space shuttle. I don't know. I might have made that part up, but I got it from Menards. It's expensive. This was a small roll. It was it 16 by 25, and this was about 17 bucks, I want to say. And depending on what you're doing with it, it gives you different R values. But some of these, I mean, R19 or R21, that's pretty good. That's better than what that wall ever was. And again, it kind of depends on how you use it, but there's nothing saying that you can't just keep stacking it layer by layer. So that's what I did. Like I said, in that section of the wall there where there are no pipes, but I had a pretty good draft because of the way that pipe is in there, and that insulation kind of just is flattened out by the pipe. So I got that all tucked in there. There should be plenty of insulation in there. Those pipes will probably never ever freeze because there is a hole at the bottom there from the basement, so you always have 55, 60 degree air from the basement coming up that wall, so that should never freeze, should never have a problem with that. So yeah, it's pretty good stuff, and it's really super easy to work with. You can just cut it with the scissors. So yep, that'll be it for now, and I guess maybe this will be a 4-part series. I guess maybe part 4 we'll have this wrapped up.